Tonight, the Midlands MEP who's forced the biggest debate on Europe for years.
Nikki Sinclaire became a member of the European Parliament purely to push for a referendum on whether we should be in or out of Europe.
We'll speak to her in just a moment. But first, Sarah Falkland's been talking to Black Country businessmen to weigh up the pros and cons. What does Europe do for us?
She's travelled the length and breadth of the country for this. A moment of victory for Nikki Sinclaire as she hands in another 20,000 signatures to add to the 100,000 already delivered to Downing Street. In pushing for a referendum on Europe, the independent MEP has helped spark possibly the biggest rebellion of the Prime Minister's leadership. The ripples are felt 100 miles away in the Black Country. Garrett Groves runs a plastic bag manufacturing firm. In his view, all is not rosy in the European garden. When he invested in new machines like this printer, he qualified for a European grant, albeit a small one.
We spent £1.5 million and we had about £250,000 in grants against capital equipment. If we had a comparison of Eastern Europe, they would get 3 or 4 times as much a grant as we would get.
He wants Britain to claw back some of its power from Brussels. Eurosceptics say the huge cost of the EU is now outweighing the advantages for our country. So how much do we pay? Some organisations say it costs Britain as much as £65 billion a year to be part of the EU. That's £1,000 for every man, woman and child in the country. What's fact, though, here in the West Midlands is that as a region between 2007 and 2013, we stand to get £345 million of European Development Fund money. Europe paid for better roads around Merry Hill to avoid snarl-ups. Could pulling out of the EU bring us as a nation to a standstill? Sarah Falkland, BBC Midlands Today in the Black Country.
Well, as you can see, the debate continues right now in the House of Commons and will continue right up until the vote at 10 o'clock. Rebel Tory MPs are expected to include Aldridge Brownhill's Richard Shepherd, Stone's Bill Cash, the Wrekin's Mark Pritchard, Dudley South's Chris Kelly, Tewkesbury's Lawrence Robertson and Dan Biles, the MP for North Warwickshire and Bedworth. Labour's Edgbaston MP Gisela Stewart also intends to vote in favour of a referendum. And we do hope to talk to Nikki Sinclaire a little bit later in the programme. Let's take you back now to our top story. Of course, that big debate over a referendum on Europe going on right now in the House of Commons. Well, listening to the debate has been the West Midlands MEP, Nikki Sinclaire, who, of course, led the campaign for it to take place. And she joins us now from Westminster. A very good evening to you.
Good evening.
You're an MEP working in Europe, supposedly for our benefit. Why are you so passionate about this?
Well, I am working for the benefit of the West Midlands, and the first thing that I said when I was elected, that I was voting for my own redundancy and the redundancy of every other UK MEP. And what I've done by setting up this petition and forced the debate today, I think that, you know, we've been arguing about Europe for all of my adult life, and it's on a debate that's going on and on and on. And what I would like to see in the UK is a full national debate about the pros and cons of our membership of the European Union and a binding referendum, so we can decide our future.
But 3 years ago, our politics show here in the Midlands did some fact-finding on Europe. It was very interesting, and it was found that the West Midlands got more out in EU grants than we put in, and it's created 15,000 jobs between 2007 and upcoming 2013. What do you make of that?
No, well, that's actually not true, and I'll just give you one example in the West Midlands of Peugeot Ryton that lost more than 2,000 jobs because the EU subsidised those jobs and sent them to Slovakia. Those figures of politics show, I challenged them at the time, and I will challenge again, and I would love to come on your programme in a couple of weeks' time to argue those figures, because I've got the facts that actually refute those figures. They're totally bogus.
OK, well, what about the PM's statement today that this is just not the right time? We're in a time of economic crisis.
Well, this petition was started a year ago, but there's always a crisis in Europe of one sort or another. We can't renegotiate our membership, because to renegotiate anything in the European Union, you have to have unanimity of 27. It's one of the problems of the European Union. But to leave the European Union, we just need to invoke Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, which allows us to withdraw, and all you need is a vote of this place here behind me.
I hear what you're saying.
The people want, on YouGov polls, times 3 in the last 6 weeks, that showed that 66% of people want a referendum, and 52% want to leave the European Union, with only 30% wanting to stay in.
Okay,
why are they so afraid of the people? Why are the politicians? Look, the politicians.
Let me just ask you this: isn't this just a bit black and white? After all, many people probably don't want to say no to everything EU, or indeed yes to everything EU.
Of course, I understand that, but let's have all I'm talking about is a national debate about the pros and cons. That's what I've called for. I've not just called just to leave. I'd like us to leave the European Union, but what I've called is for a national debate on the pros and cons, and then let the people decide. We employ these people behind us, and I'm employed by the people. You know, it's not the other way around. Trust the people with this decision.
If, as expected, the motion is going to be defeated, haven't you really set back the cause for this referendum?
No, because we're starting another petition tomorrow, and we will keep going and going and going, because in 1996 only 8% of people wanted to leave the European Union. It's now 52%. It's growing. We will leave the European Union one day, it's just when, and we will be keeping the pressure up to make that sooner rather than later.
OK, Nikki Sinclaire, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you.